Just like that, it's Friday. Hi, everybody. I'm Russ Kane. This is
Russ, hello, good afternoon. And I think you've muted yourself, which would explain why I can't hear you at all. But hopefully you can hear me. Excellent, good. So I will speak with you and share with you my observations on recent cultural forays that I've made over, in fact, the last. It's been a while since you and I were together on screen and behind microphones, and it's been, in fact, 3 weeks since I was in this hot seat. And since then, there's been a number of things that I've seen. So let me. Hello, you there, Russ?
yes, of course I'm there. You can see me.
Jolly good.
You can see me on the screen. Where would I be?
Yeah, it was a blessed.
I'm going to have a coffee while you go on.
Excellent. Right. So let me go on. It's midday here, but down in Southwark Playhouse, it's midnight, or rather, Midnight Cowboy. A classic story, classic movie that has very recently the rights for which have been allowed to be converted into a musical. But sadly, I think the owners of the rights should have held on to them.
Damn right.
In my humble,
it sounds a terrible idea.
I'll be honest with you,
it sounds a terrible idea.
And sadly, the idea does indeed live up to your expectations.
Oh, good.
The tale is, of course, a classic, a tale of two sad for different reasons hustlers who form this unlikely friendship. Joe Buck, cowboy from Texas, with a remarkable sexual prowess, who comes to try and make his millions as a stud in New York City. And the illness, I'm not sure if it's polio or not, the illness-riddled, crippled Rico Razzo Rizzo, played in the movie memorably. Well, they both were played. Well, first of all, Joe Buck in the movie was played by Jon Voight, and Dustin Hoffman played Razzo in the movie. And the story of Midnight Cowboy is a wonderfully photographed and wonderfully acted tale of desperate sadness and loneliness in the middle of one of the planet's most exciting cities. A story written brilliantly by James Leo Herlihy, photographed equally brilliantly back in the day by John Schlesinger. Two fantastic performances, and some great music as well in the movie. You had Harry Nilsson's Everybody's Talking, and that wonderful little harmonica motif that John Barry wrote that pops up so frequently through the film. So it's been converted into a musical. The usually clever and talented woman, Bryony Lavery, I'm not sure how to pronounce her surname, who's written some very good stuff in the past, in particularly a play called Frozen. She has written the book of the musical, taking Herlihy's classic and turning it into a stage show, really sort of still picking out the iconic moments and trying to weave a 2-hour stage show around it. And the music and lyrics of the evening in this instance are written by a gentleman whose name frankly meant nothing to me, but apparently he has written some big songs for some big people. Francis, quote marks, E.G., close quote marks, White. That ring a bell with you, Russ? No.
No, not at all.
Fair enough. So he's written all the songs. The shows, for want of a better phrase, and it's a tacky phrase, but it works given that we're talking about Midnight Cowboy. The show's money shot is its prologue, which has the actor who plays Joe Buck a relatively talented chappie called Paul Jacob French, who is singing "Everybody's Talking" as a prologue to the show. Well, I was kind of pleased and disappointed to see that as the prologue. Pleased because it is a fantastic song and Paul Jacob French sings it well. Disappointed because I was thinking, okay, if they're opening with this one, it's going to be downhill from here. And sadly, that's how it proved to be.
Big mistake, JB.
The
take
tune,
such an iconic tune like that and put it into what is effectively an overture.
Yep.
Because you've got to follow it up with some bangers.
The tunes, yeah, as I say, there weren't really any memorable songs that came out of it. There was one half decent song, which, as I looked through the list of songs before the show started, it was called "Don't Give Up on Me Now," and I was reminded of David Soul's banger of a hit in the 1970s, "Don't Give Up on Us." And I was thinking, oh, surely not. Surely they won't be giving that an air. And indeed, they didn't. They had, in fact, written a brand new song called "Don't Give Up on Me Now." It was perhaps the most passable of all the new compositions of the evening. So passable, in fact, that Act 1 closed with Rizzo singing this song quite mournfully, and the show finished Act 2 with Joe Buck singing it. As I say, Paul Jacob French plays Buck, and a chappie called Max Bowden, who I believe has had some acclaim on EastEnders, plays Rizzo. Joe Buck is well portrayed. He's a dumb guy with cowboy boots, and Paul Jacob French has this appropriately statuesque body and physical presence to represent the character that John Voight played so memorably in the movie. Even more impressively, I would say, is Mac Bowden's take on Ratso Rizzo, because there is pathos in this guy's performance. I did believe that he was a desperately sad, lonely, crippled guy out to make a buck wherever he could. So you had one outstanding actor, one good actor, but the show as a whole, really, I've got to be honest, it's not one to make a point going out of your way to go and see. If you're a person who wants to catch all that's going on in the world of musical theatre and add the program to your catalogue of programs, and having seen it, as you know, yep, I've seen it, and you're interested in logging the different forms of new musical writing that come about, then by all means go and see it. It's, I was touched, in fact, on press night. It was lovely to see Don Black in the audience. Don had no association whatsoever with this production of Midnight Cowboy, or probably the movie. However, of course, Don has some very memorable associations with John Barry, who'd written that motif. And to see Don in the audience and Clang have a quick chat with him at halftime, was one of the evening's more entertaining.
Did you change shirts with Don Black?
No, we sucked on oranges.
I thought you did. Yeah. Just checking. I'm asking the questions that the others dare not.
Yeah, no, I was expecting the director to pull me off at halftime, as is so often.
Yay!
Boom, boom.
But thank you.
That's one for the football.
Had to go there, boy. You had to go. Let me ask you a question. It's a serious question. I'm not being flippant. All right. The idea seems flawed from the beginning to me, as someone who is very, very judicial in going to the theatre at all, because it's so incredibly expensive. Full stop. It's just so incredibly expensive. So you can't just, splash your money around. And presumably the songs didn't live up to the fact. If you start with something which is a flawed premise, like you've got something which is perfect, Midnight Cowboy, with two magnificent actors, and you think, I know, I'll make a musical of it. The actors are never, ever, no matter how good they are, they're never going to be Dustin Hoffman and John Voight. They just won't. The film is iconic. You're going to come away with a bit of a bruising, I would have thought.
Well, Russ, you say that, but let me refer you to a glorious evening that you and I spent in the theatre seeing Back to the Future, where
Which
the
was good.
words where the words that you have just said could so easily have been applied. I remember your face as we walked past the poster, and it was, oh my gosh, I can't remember his name, but it's not Christopher Lloyd who plays Doc Brown. Corey English. And you looked at that and you thought, well, he's not Doc. You said he's not Christopher Lloyd. And you walked into that theatre a pile of very reasonable cynicism, and as rightly so. And you left the theatre thoroughly entertained for the best part of 2.5 hours.
I did, because they transformed it into something completely different while staying true to the basic pillars.
So it
of the
can
film.
be done.
It can be done. Well, Sunset Boulevard can be done. Of course, it can be done.
Yep.
But it takes a lot of skill.
Yeah, and I don't believe that skill is manifest in the production that is on display here. And I'll also challenge one other thing. You talked about the price of theatre tickets, which I quite agree in the West End. They are horrific. However, this, of course, was at Southwark Playhouse, where tickets are affordable. So if one wants to wander along and see a bit of new writing and support the actors, etc., and the musicians, blah, 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 who are all hardworking, talented professionals giving it their all.
Absolutely.
For the 5 or 6 weeks of the run, then by all means go along. It's not going to cost you an arm and a leg by
So what's reasonable? So Jonathan, what for everybody listening and watching?
Gosh,
what
hang on.
50 quid? 40 quid?
I will tell you, I'm on their website right now, and book now for seats. Let's say to go to tonight. It is
I'm going with 45.
Top price 45.
Well, that was a good guess.
45 and 36 for students. And
that's really good. Okay.
Yeah.
That's decent. That's very, very reasonable.
You've got a cast of a dozen or so people knocking themselves out every night. You've got a band of half a dozen people. You've got a technical crew. There's a lot of people being paid not huge wages.
Front of house, back of house, dressers, wardrobe, everything like that.
So it's very reasonably priced.
That is good. That is very good.
So to
well
that
done,
end,
Southwark Playhouse.
But that's also true, to be fair, of most of London's fringe. Most of London's fringe has to be affordably priced. Okay, they're not going with paying big bucks, big name stars. Often, sometimes there are. Sometimes you might find the occasional gem on a London fringe stage, or big star rather. There's a lot of gems. It is an affordable night out. But it really is far from a must see. It got 2 stars from me. I found it disappointing. I went with high hopes. I knew they had a big task ahead of them to emulate, to translate that story into musical theatre. And frankly, it hasn't really worked.
But bless them for trying. I think you really have to say, even though I'm a horrible cynic about all this, bless them for giving it a go.
Yep. Indeed. That is Midnight Cowboy on at Southwark Playhouse. The other play that I've seen that did actually entertain me, and I thought was an interesting night at the theatre, and it was the most interesting night at the theatre, at the Royal Court Theatre, I hasten to add, that I've had in a long time.
Warning alert, Royal Court mentioned.
Often I will be, underwhelmed for a variety of reasons, either the quality of the writing or the disappointing bias of the production that may be put on before me. However, in this instance, the play is called Manhunt. It's written and directed by Robert Icke, Icke, who is one of the current generation's more talented theatre makers. And this play is about Raoul Moat, who you may remember was a tragic, he was a murderous chap, to be honest, and he did bad things. He went on a very violent rampage around the northeast of England, before ending up on a campsite by a river. I'm not sure if it was the Tyne or another river up there, with a couple of mates who he'd allegedly held hostage, but they weren't hostages at all. In his last day or two, Paul Gascoigne, you may remember in the news, tried to make, this was back in 2010, tried to sit down and reason with him. That came to nothing, and Raoul Moat killed himself. As I say, having murdered brutally at least 2 people and a policeman who was involved in various road closures and whatever surrounding the Raoul Moat affair. Raoul Moat approached him, shot him in the face, and blinded him. And this poor police officer killed himself, I think, within a year, owing to the tragedy of the occasion. So Moat, I'm not sure if it glorifies him to call him a tragic figure. Moat certainly created a lot of tragedy around him. The play explores him. It explores his relationship with his girlfriend. It goes a little bit, which left me a little bit uneasy. And I say this only a little bit. Its broad premise was not to say, was Raoul Moat a man more sinned against than sinning? There was a hint of that, because I don't think anything justified Raoul Moat's appalling, violent behavior. But as a piece of theatre, in terms of taking one back into a bit of history, okay, 15 years ago, that offered a bit of context. As it happens, the Paul Gascoigne episode, Gascoigne famously turned up at the riverbank, but never spoke with Moat. Tried to, but one way or another, either the police didn't let him through or whatever. The playwright Ike does actually expand that further and puts down a fairly at one point in such a grim evening of storytelling, a bit of humor as Paul Gascoigne tries to engage with Raoul Moat. And the guy who in fact plays Paul Gascoigne, just looking at his name, Trevor Fox, brilliant. You know, it's recognizable. He gets the accent, he gets the mannerisms of this footballer who once upon a time was a mega star, mega on the football pitch, and now obviously by that stage already long past his prime. The chap who plays Raoul Moat himself is, and I'm just looking at his name, it is Samuel Edward Cook. And here I have to say, a fantastic performance. One only has I certainly only had a fleeting memory of what Raoul Moat looked like from various newspaper and television images of all those years ago. But excuse me.
What is Samuel? I've got to interrupt here. What is the point of this play? What is it? What is it trying to say? We're supposed to have sympathy for this guy, or
correct?
What's the deal here? I don't understand. I mean, I won't give it 10 seconds of my time. I'm not interested. I'm genuinely not interested in him.
Okay.
You know, to blind a policeman, kill people. Why are we having a play about him?
He was history, but you could say, well, so was Adolf Hitler. You
know, but he was bad history. You know, we could take all sorts of things.
Yeah.
What are we going to have next at the Royal Court? The people who murdered Lee Rigby? Because there's some interesting story. Because that's history. I don't get it.
I think the point to be made here is, as I say, and I in fact put in my review, has the playwright put out a well-argued explanation of Raoul Moat's journey to undertaking such horrific things, or is the play just a harrowing barrage of exploitative exposition, just, you know, without any analysis at all? But I did suggest that theatre goers should see it for themselves and make their own decision. The theatre craft on display, the acting is good. It takes a piece of history that I remembered and weaves a narrative around it. I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and say, and I think, to be fair, that's a bit harsh actually. I don't think it does set out to glorify this man's disgraceful behavior. It certainly shows him as a desperate person, and offers a little bit of insight into his own upbringing and the childhood that he went through. One of the things I picked out when I wrote my review is that Rogers and Hammerstein touched on similar ground many, many decades ago when they wrote Carousel. And I don't know how well you know Carousel, Russ, but you've got this, desperately masculine Billy Bigelow, who's the fairground barker, who ultimately kills himself after a failed attempt to rob someone to get money because his girlfriend's pregnant and he's going to become a dad. This play Manhunt, the Raoul Moat play, it's certainly about masculinity. I'm not going to drop into that cliche of toxic masculinity, but Raoul Moat certainly is. Raoul Moat certainly is a toxic masculine person.
Philip Harling. People obviously watching the show. Loads of comments coming up, and Philip Harling says Moat should be confined to history. Full stop. And I'm kind of with him on that. What are the audience when you leave the Royal Court Theatre? What are you supposed to be thinking? In other words, what is the point? What is the message?
The message of this play, as I say, it's telling a chapter of history. Some of the history is factual, and some of the history that's being told is fictional. For example, the exchange with Gascoigne. And again, of course, remember, you're also seeing the aspects of history that the playwright has chosen to put in his 2-hour script. He's been the editor of Raoul Moat's life.
No, I get that. He's the creator of this history. He can mold it any way he likes. But my point is, when you come out, are you supposed to say, well, I'm not going to put any words in your mouth. You're the theatre critic. I don't understand. What is the audience supposed to come out and say, from that, I have gleaned what?
Okay, so from that, one could come out, given that, as I say, one's only ever seen what the playwright has chosen to place before you. Yeah. You could come out saying, okay, I can understand how someone can be drawn to being a bad person through aspects of their quite emotionally traumatized childhood, which the play draws out and indicates. So you may come away from the play thinking that. You may come away from the play thinking that was a waste of my time. I didn't need to see that. You may come away from the play having a degree of sympathy for the police, looking at what happened to this poor chappie. Alternatively, you could come away from the play, to quote Bernie Grant, and say the police got a damn good hiding. There are all sorts of people that will go
Bernie
and see
Grant. I've forgotten him, mercifully.
There you go. There you go.
I had forgotten him, happily.
They remember his words after Broadwater Farm and the tragic murder of Keith.
Let me tell you about Broadwater. I'm going to tell you something, and I'm going to give you some context, right? I used to have passengers every day, Jonathan, and this is absolutely to your point about this play. And I'd have passengers every day. There was an 18-month waiting list, and I would fly over Broadwater Farm every day. And the news came up. I flew over it after those riots when PC Keith Blakelock was macheted to death. My passenger went ashen, which was often the case because of the turp. I thought they were getting airsick. She was a policewoman. I didn't know. She was a friend of PC Keith Blakelock. I've never forgotten that moment. I'm sitting 1.5 feet, probably 2 feet away from this woman who's just learnt her colleague and friend had been macheted to death. So when you see the impact it has on the police, it's a very different thing from getting everything that you read in The Guardian and all this garbage. All right? It shocked me, and I've never forgotten that moment from all those years ago. Changed my view of so many things.
So, and Russ, I absolutely respect that that story and that event.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
you asked me what would someone take away from the
yeah.
play. There'll be a variety of people that make up the few hundred or so people in the Royal Court. It was packed the night that I saw it, which wasn't press night. It was a day or two after. And what is art? I'd say the play. I would say the play does not sensationalize what Moat did, but
Is it condoning it? Is it condoning it in any way? I don't
no,
care. I'm going to
I
be
don't.
honest, Jonathan. I don't care. He had a shitty childhood. Many of us had very difficult childhoods. We don't go around shooting people.
Yep.
There's only so far these excuses can travel. Paul Claridge is saying, because this is a very interesting point you've raised, all right? Do I want to see the play? No, I don't. Do I respect the guy from writing it? He's a writer. What is art? You're the critic. I get that. And Paul Claridge says, I'm with Russ on this. Why do we need a play about Roll Moat? He wasn't a well-known figure until he committed these vile acts. There's enough horror in the world from us to learn from without this play. And I'm kind of thinking we're going through a really, really difficult time globally. Really horrible. Art, we can discuss it you and I could discuss it for 24 hours. So that was my point.
We could be discussing it in 2 weeks' time, because in 2 weeks' time I'll be picking up on my re-review of Giant, which transfers to the West End next week. Giant,
oh
of course,
God,
right,
yes,
the play about Roald Dahl's
Dahl.
anti-Semitic book review that he wrote back in 1982. Now, I could say I forget the name of your commentator who just chipped in, but
Paul Claridge.
Paul Claridge. Why not draw a veil over that? Why go and write a play about Roald Dahl's vile anti-Semitism?
Well, I'm with you on that.
Where do you draw the line? And I've got some interesting comments to make about that play, which will become, because I saw it when it opened last year.
No, I remember your reviews. I remember our conversation about it very, very clearly. Very clearly.
So anyway, but I'm aware the clock is counting me down. And Russ, I'm going to jump genre completely, in fact, jump art form completely. And I know I'm not bestowed with an OBE after my name, for which huge apologies. But I'm going to stray very, very briefly.
Only a matter of time, Jonathan. It's a matter of time.
I'll probably be NOB rather than OBE.
Jonathan Baz, knob.
Indeed. Thank you. I've been called worse. A movie that I was invited to review this weekend, which is in your cinemas this weekend. It's called The Ugly Stepsister. It is a graphically horrific movie. It's a certificate, and when you see what passes for acceptable at certificate 15 these days, this is a certificate 18, which tells you that it's really gory.
It's gonna be
full stop.
All right, go on.
I have to say, don't worry, I won't be putting anyone off their lunch.
Thank God.
Yes. It's a lovely take. Times lovely take on Cinderella. Beautifully photographed, beautifully acted. And a lot of it is quite sexual, a lot of jealousy, a lot of emotional stuff about the uglier of the stepsisters growing up, rather than the Cinderella heroine who's the beautiful, girl who's banished to a life of poverty and badly treated. And
mate, I played buttons. You're preaching to the choir here, fella.
So in this instance, the main protagonist is the ugly stepsister. I won't go into all the motives about what body enhancement processes she tries to go through. All right, just let me say that for her to fit into the glass slipper towards the end of the story,
please don't go any further.
She needs to remove her toes. But anyway,
you see, this is the difference between you and Chantal Rickards OBE. She would have done that delicately, politely, and elegantly. You got to cut off her toes.
Well, I did look up the Latin word. Of is there an operation that could use that? So
thank you. Yeah,
I was going to be quite cheeky for a minute, but you'll be glad to know, Mr. Kane, I filtered myself.
Oh, thank God. Jeez, my heart's in my mouth here with you today, boy. I don't know what's going on.
Anyway, listen, I think the clock is fast approaching Chantal's time, so you can usher me off.
let me just ask you before you go.
Go on.
You've gone back. I don't have to expand on it, but I'm just curious. We discussed. Was it Giant? Not was it Giant?
Yes, go on.
All right. Have you gone back and it requires only a kind of yes or no? Have you rethought your original thoughts about it? Is that because
Well,
I'm very interested?
I haven't seen the new West End production. Press night is this week.
Okay.
So I will be there this
All right.
week. So I think the honest answer for me to say to you, Russ, is I
Yep.
can only answer that question in 2 weeks' time.
Absolutely.
I mean, clearly, I don't believe they've rewritten the script.
No.
So I've got a
Point
pretty
out
good
what a
understanding
dick
of this
he
one.
was. No. Isn't it fat? But you know something? Before you go, I'm going to posit one question. No, because you always say, and we've discussed it, you and I, when we meet, right? You know, what is art? What constitutes art? What is being exploitative? What is this? And then you've got the thing like Roald Dahl, fantastic writer, horrible human being. And individually, we have to say, where do we draw the line? Or do we not draw the line? We haven't got time to get into it now, but it's a really complicated issue, isn't it?
Look at Wagner. Look at
absolutely. Look at Wagner.
You know, look at Woody Allen, who I think married his stepdaughter or something like that. And some people will say, "Oh, you know, I'm a little bit uncomfortable."
They weren't related. They weren't.
They were after they were married.
Here's the thing, obviously. But here's the thing, and I'm going to just end with this, right? I'm just going to end with this. I was dragged onto some big time radio show to answer the following question: why is it we've banned the music of Gary Glitter, but we didn't ban the music of Michael Jackson? To which I said, it's very simple. Two things. Gary Glitter did a few nice pop songs, and he's an absolute disgusting monster. And two, Michael Jackson was found not guilty. There's the difference. That's how you can legitimize what it is. But what I'm saying is, what is art? Where do we draw the line? Or do we not draw the line because that's what art is? I don't know, because I'm not clever enough and I don't pretend to be. Jonathan, bless you. Well, bless you for coming on. We will see you in 2 weeks' time. And I'm very intrigued when you come back with your review of Giant. Hopefully with John Lithgow, I presume.
Indeed.
All right. Till then, take care.
Cheers.
See ya. The great. Oh, what's going on there? I don't know. I'll make myself bigger. Does that help? That doesn't. Does that help? There we go. That'll do. That'll kind of do. Anyway, you can tell we know each other because we can have a pretty competitive conversation. Doesn't mean we don't like each other. It's just I'm just exploring the edges of all of this because it fascinates me. Speaking of being fascinated, Jesus, thank you. Cliche number 72. You know her. You love her more than even I do, and that's saying one hell of a lot. She is the personification of glamour and brains and knows everything that goes on screen. Chantal Rickards OBE. Get with me. And let's see her. That's much better. That is much better.
You are incorrigible.
I know I am. I know.
How are you?
Yeah. How am I? Well, it's been a funny old week. I'm going to be absolutely honest. I'm going to be very honest with you. I've been a bit down in the doldrums for no particular reason. I tell you exactly why I was down in the doldrums. No, it's a serious thing. Talking about art. This week I only had one funeral to do, which was a beautiful funeral.
Right.
And I thought, right, I can get back to my writing, back to the book. And I stared at my laptop.
Yeah.
My laptop stared at me. I went away, had a coffee, stared at my laptop. The laptop stared at me. I got nowhere. Nowhere. I couldn't write a single word. So and I was feeling I'd be really honest with you, Chantal, and I was feeling really useless and pointless. And I got very upset with myself because I'd had finally, after weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of 7 days a week, I had a few free days. And then out of the blue, I get a call from a funeral director. Could I go and see this family? I went to see them last night. Complete strangers to me. I drove quite a long way to see them, to plan the funeral for the father of the family who had died. And I'm not going to say anything because it would be rude to. They were so nice And at the end of our meeting, they said such lovely things that I came away thinking, you know, that is my purpose.
Oh,
That is my
lovely.
purpose.
You make a
And
difference.
I thought, well, sod the book. Sod the book. I can't do it. I can't do it. But I'm helping and I'm there. So that is my long answer to your question. And of course, it being Friday means we go to Melbourne with Michelle Vaughan. Right. Enough of my nonsense. But that's the answer to your question is I thought that is why I am here. That is my purpose. So what have you seen? What have you liked? What have you hated? What's going? Oh, by the way, thank you. The Diamond Heist, that Guy Ritchie documentary, fantastic.
It was good, wasn't it?
Absolutely a great recommendation. I've got
and really good contributors, and
really
it bounced along. And you know, some people might say, "Oh, does it glorify violence?" And you know, Guy Ritchie was making, you know, having fun with the crime, but actually, the crime itself wasn't particularly violent. It was, you know, it was.
It had been. The crime before was violent, but they were shooting at the unarmed police.
Yeah,
that wasn't so good. It was terrific. It was
good.
really. Thank you. It was 3 parts, and it's on Netflix. It was Chantal's recommendation. I wouldn't have seen it. Produced by Guy Ritchie. It's called The Diamond Heist. Excellent. Excellent. With a huge twist. 2 huge twists.
Huge twist. I love the twist.
2 of them. 2 huge twists. 2 huge twists that I went, whoa. I saw one coming. I did not see the other one coming. I thought that is great program making.
Yeah.
Led me by the nose, led me down this path. I'm sitting there going, XYZ, I hate you. You're hot. And I'm like that. It was great. Well done, you. Thank you so much for the recommendation, Chantal.
Good. Well, I'm glad that 3 hours of your time.
It was marvelous. It was really, really good. Really good. Beautiful.
Okay,
anyway, there we are.
I'm going to start with a drama sort of in your territory, and you will know. I mean, there are dramatic moments that you often see on television, but there's nothing more dramatic than people coming together for the reading of a will, which, of course, is very much in your wheelhouse at the moment. Because you are living and breathing, absolutely living and breathing those crazed relationships being played out in a small, tight space. Most particularly, obviously, you're doing it at the stage of the commitment or burial or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But the reading of the will, clearly, you've got a lot of very interested parties in the room.
Yep.
And where the will has just been changed also has a dramatic effect. I mean, so I'm going to tell you very briefly about what I think is a really good series. I'm up to episode 4. I've done 4 episodes in the last 2 days, and not much keeps me going for that amount of time. And it is called Jack Wright, i.e.
Chris Lang. He and I have been chatting about it.
And I knew that you would immediately say Chris Lang, who is the writer of Unforgotten, which I think we've just had the 5th or 6th series of on ITV. And this is Chris Lang, who obviously wanted to write something completely different, which is just about one core family and the dynamics around the reading of a will. And actually, I think it's jolly good. I'm really enjoying it. It's got a terrific cast, other than the fact that, without giving too much away, clearly a man has died. That man is Jack Wright, who is played by Trevor Eve. And he...
Love Trevor Eve.
There is a shooting in a barn at his stately home, and he is dead. It is a supposed suicide, and as yet, I don't know whether it is or it isn't. So I'm still... So it's a pity I haven't got as much of Trevor Eve in the series as I would like, because I really enjoy Trevor Eve. But
he's always good, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's always good. And it's got help me out, John Sim. Am I right? John Sim, who plays Grace.
Who plays Grace exactly is one of the disgruntled sons, who's a failing or failed record producer who has an addiction.
Like every friend of mine in the music industry. What does he do? He's a failed record.
Yeah, failed record producer. There are lots of them, let's face it. Failed record producer and really grumpy. Hasn't seen his dad for a million years, or has seen a different story. Story that there's another son who is the son who followed his dad into the business, which is making bricks. How banal can that be? But he had come from a lowly background, built up a brick business, became a multi-millionaire, and clearly has died. So, and then you've got 3 wives, 2 ex-wives and 1 current wife.
Blimey, O'Reilly.
Yeah, that's also pretty interesting.
Oh, that's good.
Varying grandchildren played by all sorts of great characters, but young grandchildren from the 3rd wife and older grandchildren from the 2nd wife. Anyway, it's not complicated. I'm overcomplicating it, and it isn't complicated, and it's worth watching. It's pacey. It's, you know, done as a good thriller. There are, I'm going to say, are there comedic moments? Well, the characters themselves are quite interesting, and you sort of, you laugh wryly occasionally, but it's still a really good thriller, and it's honestly,
got great reviews. Got because Chris Lang this morning I wrote and said congratulations, etc.
Yeah.
He posted. What I love is even people at that level still promote their own work, which I think is very grounded. Good for him. Why shouldn't he? And he posted up the reviews, and they were bangingly good. Great reviews.
So it's on Sky or on Now. But it's, I mean, it originated from UK TV, and it's on You and Alibi, which you will find on Sky and Now.
Yes.
So yeah, bit convoluted, but it's out there somewhere.
It is.
And worth watching, and called I, Jack Wilson. There are I, Jack Wright, 6 episodes, 6 1 hours. And I don't know what happened, which makes it easier to talk about.
Tell you what, though, it gives you a sense of passing time where young, handsome, strapping Trevor Reeve has got grown-up grandchildren in the story. And I've no real life, I've no idea. But it tells you something, doesn't it? In my head, he's Eddie Shoestring, of course.
Yeah, he was a contemporary of people I know at the same school, and they must now be 73, I think.
Really?
So yes, I think he must be about 73, something, maybe 74. Don't know. We need Phil here to look it up. Do you think he's older than that?
No, I don't know. He's timeless to me. He's one of my favorite actors. I think he's just great. He's just terrific.
But he is offed in the first scene. So anyway,
I like his daughter is a pretty good Alice Eve. She's pretty. She's a good actress. She's really very good. And I saw her in an American film the other week, and she was really convincing. It was very clever because I thought it was a great accent, and then she switched into the English thing because she was. It was kind of a fraud thing. It was clever. Yeah. Good family.
She spent quite a lot of time in Hollywood. I mean, she's she's got a great career.
She was in the Star Trek movie. Fat Scotty has come up, being the professional that he is.
Yes.
Trevor Eve is 73, looks sickeningly younger than I do.
70.
You got it right.
I was about right. Yeah.
And your mate down in Sydney says Google says 73.
There we go. Okay. So
give or take a billabong or two.
Yeah.
Right, that's it. That's
and
all
a good
the Australian cliches for the day. Out the way.
Okay. So now I'm going to take you to Poland. Occasionally.
Okay.
Only because I love Poland. Because
you go there a lot. I know.
I go there a lot. Yes, and I've been a couple of times this year, which is lovely. But this time, Hollywood goes to Poland. In that, I know there was that lovely film out called A Real Pain.
I adored it. Yes.
The Jesse Eisenberg film. But actually, this is the brand new series 22 of Who Do You Think You Are? And it features proper, live, real Hollywood film star in Andrew Garfield.
Fabulous. Yes. Fabulous episode. Just one of the best episodes.
Yeah,
I
it's
adored
nice.
every second of it. I will be quiet and let you talk about it. It was wonderful.
No. Tell me what you thought about it.
Oh, it moved me. It really, really moved me. It moved me. This is like a therapy session for me. It moved me because he has, present tense, the most wonderful relationship with his father.
Gorgeous.
And I was jealous. I was jealous of that wonderful relationship. It moved me because he came across as such a lovely, down-to-earth guy despite all the huge success. It moved me because he discovered so much about himself. It moved me because of the utter barbaric hostility of mankind that exists just as badly today. And I realized nothing has changed and it was all for nothing. It moved me on a whole multitude of platforms and levels. And I thought he was great in it. I met him once. I went up and just spoke to him. I did. I met him and we just had a chat. I didn't care. And it could not have been nicer.
Right.
So bless him.
Was it at one of my screenings in LA?
No, it was here in London.
Right.
It was the screen. I possibly was with you. I don't know. And I think you popped off to powder your nose. And seriously, it was for Hacksaw Ridge. Would I see that with you?
No. I saw that in Los Angeles for sure.
No, I wasn't in LA to see it.
Right.
No,
okay.
I definitely wasn't in LA. I was here because he was with Claire Foy, and I had a little chat with her. I don't know what she was doing. I think she was just there for some reason, or maybe she was in the movie. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Anyway, they were both very, very nice.
No, he's charming. He came to one of my parties in Los Angeles. I thought he was a very nice.
Was that in your flat?
Not one of the.
Oh.
That's a very select number of people who ever got as far as the flat in Los Angeles.
Pat Scotty's being ridiculous. Andrew Garfield is an outstanding actor. Loved that film when he played the ginger cat. You fool! Right. Oh.
Anyway, season 22, series 22 of Who Do You Think You Are? One of the longest running, clearly, BBC formats, and still going strong. And actually, sometimes I think, oh, do we really want to see a Hollywood film star? But actually, I liked Andrew Garfield's story. It's beautifully made.
Fabulous story.
These program makers know what they're doing, and they take you down a certain route to find lovely things about people's past, or not, as the case may be.
Or not.
And, but worth watching.
Isn't it fascinating, though, Chantal, how you have to make a decision in life, and sometimes you get to that crossroad. So his family, I'm not giving anything away, it's in the, and his family, some stayed. Terrible mistake. They wouldn't have realized. Terrible mistake. Some went to South America, and you go, well, that's random.
Yeah.
And they did. Others left it just a few weeks too late. Terrible mistake. Yeah. It's just the complete utter randomness of life, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what got to me. I think life is just such a weird lottery.
Yeah.
If you look for sense in it, that is the road to madness. If you treat it as an utterly random lottery, you can kind of get through it.
Yeah. And in fact, Andrew Garfield went, part of his childhood was in Los Angeles.
He was born there.
Terribly British.
Yeah.
But clearly he was part of the family that were thrown to the different parts of the world.
The four winds, weren't they? They were thrown to the four winds to get the hell out of Dodge, or to get out of Poland, really.
Yeah.
The Polish scenery looked like, I was thinking of you. It's funny because it came up and it was a big Polish section of this episode. And it was, tell me, so I got to ask you a question. I got to ask you a serious question, right? You lived in the States. I live in the States. Andrew Garfield, born in the States, does a perfect American accent, speaks with no hint of an American accent. Don't you hate it? I'm prejudicing your answer. Don't you hate it when the Brit, and they go over to LA for and they stay for a couple of months, and they say, hey, Chantal, great to see you. You go, well, you're from Croydon. Shut up. What are you talking like that for? It's ridiculous. It's just ludicrous.
I know. I know, but I mean, people pick up accents very quickly, and if you are attuned to it, you know, you can lose your British accent terribly quickly.
Yeah.
And I think I came back with some bad habits 5 years ago, but most of them I've got rid of.
Really?
Yeah, because I'd say things like, "Oh, literary," you know, just sort of.
Really?
My T's weren't quite as sharp as they had been, and of course, you get used to saying water with a D.
Water. Yeah. My family in Texas are doing that now. Yeah. Water, butter. They go, you know, if I hear them, they go butter. And I'm like, no, it's butter. I mean, there's two T's in the word.
Yeah. When I asked for water with a T, people would ask me again what I meant.
That's because they're thick as mints.
Yeah. So I just gave it up really quickly, and I just thought there's no point in going water, WATER, and making a point. I'd just go water. But I've got rid of those bad habits, fortunately. Anyway.
Oh, look at this. This is interesting. He goes, I worked in London for a few years on and off and picked up that southern twang. The Londoners thought I was a Brummie. And back in the West Midlands, they thought I was a wannabe Cockney.
Oh, dear. That's a muddle.
That is a muddle. Right. Okay. Next on your agenda.
Going well, last weekend we had the pleasure of seeing each other on Saturday night.
We did. It was lovely. Thank you.
No, not at all. And then it was Easter Sunday, and not that I am a religious person, because I'm sort of not any longer. But I did watch a wonderful 3-part program on the BBC about Handel's Messiah. And it was Gareth Malone, who is a man I like. You know, he was on telly an awful lot about 5 years ago, and actually haven't seen him on telly.
Is that the choir? Is that the choir fellow?
The choir guy. Yeah, he did the Military Wives. Yeah, and he seemed to be on everything for a while. He was absolutely sort of, you know, top of the pops for quite a long time. Anyway, this is part reality show. He takes 8 would-be singers, some of whom have sung a little bit, but none of them have ever sung choral music before. Some have never actually sung anywhere but the bath. And he takes these 8 people, and their story about training for this final concert is played out over only 2 episodes. So it's not dragged out too far. Because some of these reality shows just go on forever, and you just think, oh, please, can we cut to the chase?
Just get over it. You're not that interesting. Please move on. That's
but actually, these people are interesting. I like them as human beings. Some of them had Christian faith. Some of them had no faith. And I'm going to say that the faith thing was irrelevant. It wasn't, because it was sort of part of the story. And it was very easily blended into the action of what was going on and how these people were learning to perform. And then, in fact, you get to the performance. So the 3rd episode is just the performance and nothing else. And that's a sort of 2-hour program. But the 2 reality shows, you get the build up, and then you see them singing on the night. And then you get their reaction afterwards. And it's just gorgeous. The music is absolutely fantastic. Handel's music, written here, of course, in London, and beautifully done. So even if you don't love choir music, this is such a great piece, and the program's been terribly well made by.
I was astounded to learn that Handel performed in a church in Stanmore, which is just North London.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was like, well, that can't be right. I thought, look it up again, make sure the information was correct. Yeah. Handel performed because of, is it Lord Chandos or Earl Chandos? Anyway, some big wig aristo.
Yeah.
And had him over, and there was a church, and Handel performed. Because you always think these people are kind of so big and so mythical, they don't have anything that you could, touch or relate to. And there it was. Yeah.
Now, anyway, it's called Gareth Malone's Messiah, which is a bit weird because actually it's Handel's Messiah. But let's forgive the BBC for a slightly strange title. But it's worth watching. So 3 programs, and you can watch it at any time of the year. You don't just have to watch it at Easter. But it's delightful. And you can certainly just have it on in the background. You don't have to sit and watch every single last minute. But it's nicely done.
My brain these days, I just drift off and I think, I'm not following the show. Of course not. You've been looking at other stuff. Fat Scotty said, his name is Scott Lyons, by the way. He calls himself Fat Scotty. I would never be so rude. He's not even fat. Chantal, have you watched the 8-part BBC drama This City Is Ours? It's the Scouse-led drugs drama starring the uber-talented Sean Bean. We like him.
Yeah.
But he dies in everything. Amazing cast and a line of duty-esque delivery.
Yeah. I've got to start.
I hear it's good.
Yeah.
I hear it's good.
This weekend. Everybody has phoned me saying, have you watched this? And I'm going, no, I've had so much on my list this week. I need to sit down properly with that tomorrow, I think. And so I'll deliver back some words on it next Friday, I think.
Okay,
but no, I haven't seen it yet. It's out there. There's so much good stuff on at the moment. We're sort of getting to the new season of telly stuff. And so a lot of the new spring collection is coming out.
Oh, the spring collection.
Spring.
Yeah, that's it's funny. There is so often there's like nothing, you know.
Yeah.
You go back to old favourites, and then suddenly, boom! And you think, I am really spoilt for choice.
Yeah,
spoilt for choice.
Indeed. And Channel 4 have brought out a new hospital fly on the wall. When I worked for Yorkshire Television 35-ish years ago, we used to make a show called Jimmy's, which was it was from St James's Hospital in Leeds, and it was one of the very first fly on the wall shows that was made in the UK. And this is very similar in style. It's just gone back to sort of old, traditional, unfussy, clever storytelling. And it's from a hospital in Blackburn in Lancashire. And these are sort of salt of the earth people. And especially the patients all have beautiful, lovely stories. But some of the carers, some of the health workers are just phenomenal. Most particularly, there's a lovely woman called Nikki Tingle, who is the theatre manager, who I've completely fallen in love with.
What a great name. Isn't that a wonderful name? Nikki Tingle.
And it's called 999, the critical list. And it's only for people who have got an emergency and have to be operated on.
See, I can't watch any.
You can't watch?
I can't. No.
Love programs like that. I know
you love them. Phil Dave.
Yes.
He of blessed memory. Phil Dave adores anything like that. And I just, because it makes me feel more mortal than I do every day when I.
Oh, no, I love it. I love the human stories so much.
This was it. You see, you got a big fan here. Jimmy's, the first groundbreaking fly in the wall hospitals. I remember the original series because of the Yorkshire Television fanfare ident.
Absolutely. Very well known.
There you go. There you go. That was you.
Well, no, I didn't make it. All my colleagues made it. All my colleagues in the clever department, i.e. the documentaries.
The clever department. Where did you work? I didn't work in the clever department.
No, I didn't. I worked in the silly department, which was
You did not work in the silly department. People have no idea how lucky we collectively are to have you every Friday, because your CV is like, oh my God, she did that. So I know you're very modest about it.
No, I'd love to have worked on Jimmy's. I did work on City Hospital for BBC One, which I completely agree. Yeah, but no, Jimmy's was great. And this thing on Channel 4 is good. 999, the critical list. Anyway, it's there. If you like that sort of stuff, it's great.
Do you think it's because people are curious about other people's lives, or they see people who are, I'm being serious, not flippant, really ill, and thought, well, my life might be pretty crappy, but at least I'm not ill like them. I wonder if there's a bit of that in it. Or you just nosy?
Well, I think I'm just curious. Slightly better word than nosy, but I'm also nosy.
Curious is good. Curiosity is a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'm really interested in the science. I love the science. And I think I told you briefly that I was doing some training for a charity called the Coroner's Court Support Service.
Yes, you did.
And I was in court all day on Monday. Right. And again, it was the story of a man who had been found in the Regent's Canal, in London. God. But to me, what was most fascinating was the science behind how his death had happened. And it was fascinating just listening to psychiatrists and to healthcare workers and to the police. To me, it was just a drama unfolding in front of my eyes. So
every single coroner's case, I'm going to this afternoon introduce you to my friend who is a coroner, who will remain nameless. We're very close. I'm going to hook you up by email. So because I think it would be, if you don't mind. No, they won't. They won't mind, because it's a fantastic thing that you're doing, which I'm not allowed to talk about. But every single coroner's case is in itself a television drama. There's no ifs or buts. They are extraordinary.
Completely.
Extraordinary.
Theatre, I think.
And when you think you've got your head around the complexities of life and you're told the background, you think, if you wrote it in a novel, your editor or your agent would say, don't be ridiculous. No one would ever do that. And they do, and worse.
I mean, writers like you, if you are trying to write a story where, a crime story, you should start at the coroner's court, because the way that the stories unfold, and they don't.
Well, who do you think was my advisor?
Well.
I only pretend to be this stupid, Chantal. I'm not that dumb.
Okay.
God. No, they were great. We're going to have a couple of comments. I'm not doing Philip Harling. That is a terrible joke. It's funny, but I'm not bringing it up. It is funny, though. Many of the Fly and Wall shows came off the back of TV dramas like Casualty, Angels, and The Bill, as the technical advisors wanted to humanize the actual real-life work of the emergency services. What a great point.
Yes,
I didn't know that.
Absolutely.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, Chantal, thank you so much. Thank you for all your marvelous suggestions. I write them down on my little whiteboard, because everyone always says, "What are we going to watch?" And there you go. Chantal, thank you so much. I will see you soon.
Have a lovely weekend.
The great Chantal Rickards OBE. I don't know how to make myself bigger now. Oh, this is that'll do. Gave myself a fright there. Okay, so that's another week of the Midday Show. I will be back on Monday with Neil, all being well, with a fair breeze. It's London Marathon, so if you're thinking of going to London, just don't. Sunday's London Marathon. You can't. I mean, you literally, unless you're running, God's sake, don't go there. Good night to you in Sydney, Michelle Vaughan. Mark, isn't it weird? Love having Australian viewers and listeners. It's great. Until we meet again on Monday, try and stay out of trouble. No hurty words. You know what will happen if you do?